Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate not only the live audience as I deliver these Facebook Lives. In fact, I should say something at the outset. I am speaking at this moment at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday morning, preceding my CNN program. And these briefings have become regular for, more than at least the last year. What's really astounding is that we'll have a live audience somewhere, it's building as I speak, somewhere usually between 500 and 700 people. By the time that the commentary has been out for the remainder of the weekend, in the last few weeks, 50,000 people have watched them. It's astounding. So that means that those of you who are here live are gaining some benefit from it and sharing it with friends, and I really appreciate that. Please keep it going. Hopefully you'll find what I'm about to say redeeming, and you'll share this as well. I think that the headline that I put either, I can't see it now, either above or below this commentary says, the most underreported issue of the campaign season. And hopefully you're intrigued as to what I think the most underreported issue is. Certainly the most reported issue in the last 24 hours has been this charge that the president regarded the war dead as losers. I'll say something about that in a moment. But an issue that I don't think has received a sufficient level of attention, and an issue on which in the last 24 hours my CNN crew could not get the Biden campaign to publicly state their position, is so-called vaccine nationalism. Let me crystallize it for you this way. With regard to a coronavirus vaccine, should an asymptomatic American teenager get the vaccine before, say, a foreign healthcare worker? I'd never thought about the issue until I read an essay by a guest that I will have on my program on CNN today, who has already been my guest on radio this week. Let me present it in a succession of headlines. So first this week came the headline that says, CDC tells the states, be ready to distribute vaccine on November 1. And of course, there's some controversy surrounding this. I, for one, hope that there's a safe and effective vaccine available by November 1, but because the election concludes on November 3rd, many say, oh, this is going to be a political stunt. In fact, so much so that pharma companies have now publicly said, just in the last day or so, that they will not seek approval until they've got a certain level of confidence in the efficacy, which makes me wonder, wait, don't they do that all the time? But okay, whether the vaccine is by November 1, whether it's January 1, we hope and we pray that at some point soon there will be a coronavirus vaccine, right? Something that you may not know is that right now, more than 170 countries are in talks to participate in what's called the COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access Facility. They call it COVAX. Of course, there's an acronym, and it is being co-led by the World Health Organization. The United States is not a participant. So here are 170 nations working in tandem on a distribution plan. And we're not involved in it because the Trump administration is betting that they will win the vaccine race, insofar as we've already partnered with 6 different big pharma companies. It eliminates the chance to secure doses from a pool of promising vaccine candidates, which is a risky approach. In other words, if we're not correct in the play that we've made, then we're going to be shut out. Now, the White House is confident that one of the 6 with whom we've partnered will be the first or among the first to come up with the vaccine. And so where we are taking this vaccine nationalist approach, it begs the question that I said a few moments ago. Who should get it first? okay, of course, here in the United States, if we have control of it, because after all, if it's one of the 6, we will have paid for it. Of course it should be American healthcare workers, right? Of course it should be those with pre-existing conditions, right? Of course it should be the elderly, right? But what about those who are deemed to be at very low risk, at least risk of perishing? You know, kids, the young invincibles that we used to speak so much about in a health insurance context, who are college students. If we control it because one of the 6 big pharma companies hits the lottery, should we be sharing it with, say, foreign healthcare workers, foreign individuals who are high risk, or do we first take care of Americans? I mean, it is really the crystallization of the president always proclaiming America first. And I have to believe that if the Biden campaign were focused on this issue, dare I say maybe this would have been a more legitimate question than some of the questions that I heard at the press conference in the last 2 days. I mean, come on. Whoever you're for in this campaign, you can't say that there's parity in the questions that are being put to these 2 candidates. I mean, I think this is a hell of a question for Joe Biden. Do you support the Trump administration? Well, immediately when I voice it that way, the answer would be no, right? I mean, I'll just ask, I can ask it the way that I've asked it in today's survey question. Do you agree with the World Health Organization, quote, the first priority must be to vaccinate some people in all countries rather than all people in some countries? That's what the WHO is saying, that it's people first, not countries first. I expect that the Biden campaign, that Joe Biden would say that he supports the WHO approach. And this would be a really significant difference between the 2. Now, here's something interesting. My guest on the subject today, who is, by the way, totally against the American go-it-alone approach, his name is Thomas Boyke. He's with the Council on Foreign Relations. In fact, let me give you his proper title. He's the Director of Global Health at the Council on Foreign Relations. He's also a law professor at Georgetown. But he begins an essay in Foreign Affairs. Hey, TC, I know you're watching. Will you do me a favor and put the link to Boyke's piece right here in this Facebook Live so that people can see it? So he begins an essay that he wrote in Foreign Affairs by saying this: the Trump administration officials have compared the global allocation of vaccine against the coronavirus that causes COVID-19 to oxygen masks dropping inside a depressurizing airplane. Quote, you put on your own first, and then we want to help others as quickly as possible. That's Peter Marks, a senior official at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration who oversaw the initial phases of vaccine development for the U.S. government. So the Trump administration view is we're all on an airplane. The oxygen masks drop. The first thing that we do is we put on our own mask, and then we help the elderly woman next to us, or we help the infant sitting on our lap. But you got to protect yourself first before you can protect others. And Professor Boyke responds by saying, no. This is the equivalent of masks dropping only in first class before everybody else in coach can be protected. This is the issue that I'm addressing with today's survey question at Smerconish.com. Do you agree with the World Health Organization? Quote, the first priority must be to vaccinate some people in all countries rather than all people in some countries. Should be a great conversation starter, and I hope on this issue, because I've just not heard anybody address this, meaning Trump or Biden, and I think that it is a really significant issue that needs to be addressed and might be the subject of a significant divide between the two. So that is what I think is the greatest underreported issue of the presidential campaign season. let me say a word about the Jeffrey Goldberg Atlantic piece. By the way, guys, I can't give it all away here. You got to watch CNN at 9 a.m. in the East, okay? I'm just giving you a show preview. By now, you know of the Jeffrey Goldberg Atlantic allegation with regard to the president, that he didn't want to get his hair wet, a problem I will never have. That's why he stayed away from the French memorial service, that he regards our war dead as being suckers for getting killed, bunch of losers. You hear that. I don't know about you, but you hear that, and was your first reaction, oh my God, he would never say that? Well, that wasn't my first reaction. It wasn't my first reaction because I think of what he said about John McCain. And as I said on radio yesterday, when he told Frank Luntz in 2015 that he respects those who don't get caught, I figured he was done. It was one of many instances where I said, well, put a fork in this guy. Grab him by the pee was another instance where I said, there's no way he can survive this, politically speaking. But he did. So maybe like you, maybe not like you, when I heard the quote that was attributed to him in the Atlantic, I thought, well, yeah, that kind of sounds like him. As grotesque as it is, it sounds like the sort of thing that he flippantly might say. But I then have to deal with John Bolton's book. John Bolton is no fan of President Trump. John Bolton was there. John Bolton revealed a lot of embarrassing details about President Trump in the book called The Room Where It Happened. And I won't read it to you now, but if you were to read Bolton's account of what went on in France, he says that it was a weather-based decision, the Secret Service made it, that there's a protocol of not having an American president too far from an airport at any one time. And in this instance, the president would have been 90 minutes away had he traveled by car. I'm sure the president didn't want to travel 90 minutes each way. Hey, when I went to Paris with my wife years ago, we wanted to go to the beaches of Normandy. It was 3 hours each way. We did it round trip in one day. It was that important to us. I don't get the impression it was that important to the president. But I have to say, just as one who approaches this as an attorney, evidentiary based in my thinking, if it were true, Bolton would have said it. Now, of course, the person who knows the story, you think, is General Kelly. Retired General Kelly, the president's former chief of staff. And what I found really amazing yesterday is that I was watching the president's briefing, and he was asked about this, and he was denying it and saying it's all bullshit, blah, 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 blah. But then he went out of his way to denigrate Kelly, that Kelly was exhausted and couldn't even function by the end of his tenure as White House chief of staff. And what I thought as I watched that was, there's no way that Trump would have said, would have volunteered what he volunteered about Kelly yesterday unless the president believes that Kelly is going to toe the line of the Goldberg piece, that he was either the source or that he's going to back it up. Why else would the president go looking for trouble yesterday with John Kelly and besmirch Kelly again? If he wanted to keep Kelly quiet, you'd think that he would have praised Kelly yesterday. I can't imagine that it would have been General Kelly, such a good guy, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what he said. One other detail. Now, I'm going to save it for the TV show. A viewer, a listener of mine, pointed something out to me that nobody has noticed on this issue, and it relates to the president's speech in Latrobe on Thursday. That's all I'm saying. You will have to watch CNN for the payoff in that regard. Okay, other things going on my program today. I have Scott Atlas, pardon me, the president's new and top COVID advisor, who is getting, hammered everywhere in the press. Here's yesterday's New York Times. Pandemic advisor with Trump ear stirs up the White House. He will join me today. You know that the Washington Post had a story that they said was sourced 5 times over, that Dr. Atlas, is an advocate for herd immunity within the White House. Dr. Atlas told me on my radio show this week that is an absolute lie. But we'll address that subject and several others. I'm thrilled to have him on the program, and there are a number of things that have been said about him, criticisms that I'll raise and give him the chance to respond. Also, I mean, it's unbelievable, the show today for a holiday weekend. Frank Fahrenkopf will join me. He is the co-chair of the Commission on Presidential Debates. He is one of the greatest radio guests I've ever had. I think that so few Americans understand the Commission on Presidential Debates and the way in which they go about their task. You know that 4 debate moderators were selected by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The amount of discretion that is put into the hands of those 4 individuals is stunning. And Frank Fahrenkopf will give us a briefing on that subject today. And then finally, James Altucher, I better get it right. Altucher or Altucher? Altucher. I think it's Altucher. Anyway, former hedge fund guy, entrepreneur, a comedy club owner, a best-selling author, a really interesting personality, wrote an essay saying New York City is dead and it's not coming back. And Jerry Seinfeld then responded to him saying, this guy's a putz, he doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, blah, blah. They've been going back and forth. And James Altucher will join me, and we will talk about this issue, the future of New York City and big cities generally amidst a pandemic, amidst civil unrest. Did you see what happened in Rochester last night? And also amidst, bandwidth, giving people the ability to work from home. So I will tell you that more effort, I don't know if it'll show, but more effort by yours truly has gone into today's CNN program than I think any that I've done in 6 or 7 years. Just staying conversant on the news has been really, really arduous. I have great guests and I think some good content. So that's what I'm up to. Anyway, the survey question today at Smerconish.com asks about the WHO and the approach. Should it be nations or should it be people? And I've got to believe that this would be a major divide between Trump and Biden. If only someone would ask Biden, or if the former vice president would answer my inquiries through CNN about this issue. But I think that it's not yet been focused on, and that's what I want to do mostly today, is I want to shed some light on that. So go vote on the survey question. If I can say just 2 other things, I'd like to say them now, and it's this. My website looks phenomenal, Smerconish.com. If you've never been, every day I show my hand. You see my show prep. I show you 20 links that I'm relying on, having done a read-in that is hours long. And the links that are on the website are then in my daily newsletter, which costs nothing. So you have the option of waking up every morning and seeing what I deem to be the news of the day. And here's the beauty. It's not from the left and it's not from the right. In composite, it's somewhere in between, which is the way that I encourage everybody to read in, and I give you a leg up every day. So please register for the newsletter. But what I'm really getting to is this, that the editor of Smerconish.com, Gilly Remen, proud graduate of Lehigh University, this is her final weekend. So thank you, Gilly. You've done a great job. Look at the website, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll see the great job that she's done. I'm also saying thanks to Blake McGill, who started the daily newsletter, rose it to 30,000 plus people who are getting it every day, and so I'm saying so long, hopefully not forever, to both Gilly and Blake. They've done extraordinary work. Blake's got to go back to Dartmouth. Good for her. And so I salute them both, and I couldn't do it without them. And of course, TC, of course, is the one calling all the shots, right? Holy smokes, have you listened to her new podcast? It comes with an NC-17 warning. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you. I see all these comments. And let me tell you, this weekend, later today, I'll go back and I'll read them all, so they're not for naught. I can't keep up. They're just too many. Nearly 1,000 people are tuned in live, and it seems to me like most of you have something to say, which is a good thing. Please go vote on the survey question. Have a safe weekend. Wear a mask. I'll see you at 9 a.m. on CNN, I hope.